Hi everybody, this is Caroline. Today I wanted to talk to you about thinking like an artist who's stuck at home in a pandemic. Something that I learned a few years back because I was stuck at home for different reasons, is that when your world feels small, it helps to think small, like really small, like this small, like a bug or a hamster or something little. Think with curiosity and exploration and look at your world from a different scale. It also helps to be aware that we perceive time differently. A starfish crawling across the ocean floor moves very slowly, so slowly we can't see it. But when you speed up some video footage of those guys, they're really moving. So if you think about it, the sun's rolling around in the sky every day, the moon's rising and setting, the stars are coming out, and then they're going back to bed. Lots is happening that we don't fully perceive because of the limitations of our body. But if we think creatively and think small, we can find all kinds of great stuff to draw and paint and explore visually right in our backyard, right in our immediate environment, even inside our homes. My dog's eager to get going. She wants me to come back in the garden. So let's go. I'm going to take you for a little tour, a very little tiny tour of my garden. Let's go. Let's start right here. I haven't even gone in the gate yet. Look at this beautiful little columbine bud. One of my favorite flowers. Wouldn't it be great to draw something like that? Check out this cool thing. It's just growing on my garden gate. It looks like an alien. How close can I get? Wow, what a nifty little lichen. I love lichen. Here's some more lichen growing on a branch. It looks like a tree. It's so delicate, and the colors are lovely. It's kind of a sage green. Here's something nice. These are iris bulbs. They're just sprouting up, and there's these bright peppermint green little plants growing amongst the irises. I just love that. I can imagine using my brush to make long strokes with a touch of red at the base or a rusty color. My dog's giving me kisses. And then having them fade out towards the tips. Here's something kind of cool. We're trying to remove these tree roots, but if I stop thinking like a grown-up and start looking at them as a child might, I would notice that the roots make really interesting patterns, and when you get up close to them, they have all kinds of little growing things all over them, like a little jungle. Would be neat to draw something like that and turn it into a alien landscape or something. Here's my little bird bath. But what I wanted to show you is down here. Look at the colors on this rainbow chard. Such a gorgeous yellow. I love that. I wonder which type of yellow I would use from my watercolor set to make that color. Let's see what else we can find. Check it out. My rhododendron is blooming. Look at all the beautiful water droplets. Maybe a bee will come by. Sometimes if you're patient and you watch for the little things, you can see all kinds of action on a small scale. These are the flowers of my pink currant bush, and they attract a lot of insects, pollinators. I think I'm going to have a good crop this year. They look like little tiny bells turned upside down. Look at how neat the petals are. think there's like 5 petals. And then there's tiny little yellow stamens inside with pollen on them. It's snowing. It's snowing cherry petals. Isn't that nice? These plants growing in this pot here are my mint plants. I really like the patterns on the leaves. I think it would be fun to do a study of those patterns. The one with the little bit of burgundy on the edges is chocolate mint, and then I think the pale green one is pineapple mint. This time of year, if you stake out a dandelion long enough, you're almost sure to catch a bee in action. The bees love dandelions. Look at all the gorgeous, gorgeous shapes inside that flower. Have you ever looked at one under a microscope? I have. They're incredible. And here we think of them as weeds, but they have incredible, incredible structure. And they're such a gorgeous color. They even smell good, and the whole plant is edible. You can make dyes from them too, and a type of coffee substitute with the roots. These are my salmonberry bushes. There's a few raspberries mixed in as well. Every so often, the hummingbird comes around and sips at these flowers. They're such an incredible color. And then in the summer, when the berries come out, they vary from orange to a deep ruby red. I love salmonberries. And they're quite a beautiful little form. All those little globules full of juice. They're a great thing to draw. And then you eat them. This time of year, the ferns are unfurling. They start out as little curly fiddleheads. I think some types are edible. I've eaten some before. You fry them up with butter in a pan or steam them. They're delicious. But I love the forms of a fern. They're so graceful. They're so lush. I have quite a few growing here because there's a lot of moisture in this spot. A few fronds of fern make interesting prints if you ink them and then press them onto paper. Rhubarb pie, anybody? Look at the patterns on this amazing leaf. Isn't that gorgeous? My rhubarb is really doing well at the moment. And there's just so much to see. I wonder what a rhubarb leaf painting would look like if I did it in rainbow colors instead of green. I could wet each section of the leaf separately and add a different color, kind of like little cells of color, like stained glass. It would be beautiful. This time of year, the maples have put out their leaves and they're flowering. I'm told that the flowers are edible. What I love most about these beautiful maples is the way they create a green stained glass surrounding. When you look up through the leaves, they are just so vibrant against the sky. Today it's an overcast day, but on a blue sky day, that blue and green together looks just incredible. There's a flower. I love maples. Here's something special. No, not my dog. This flower right here. This is camas. I've had this bulb in my garden for about 7 years. It produces flowers every year now, and I consider that very special. I know that this is a plant that the First Nations people here used and still use today, traditionally, as a starchy root food source. And I've eaten one, and they taste really great, especially if you have them in a pit cook. I love the color, that blue-purple. It's one of my all-time favorite colors. Look at the interesting structure. hard to keep it in focus. My camera is struggling with how close up I am. But it has a really neat structure. Here's a pretty thing. This was a glass bowl I found at a thrift shop. It broke, but I love the pattern of the glass. Would be a good jumping off point for an abstract painting, perhaps. Here's some more lichen. I never get tired of looking at this stuff. It's so bizarre. So beautiful. This is an azalea bush. I wonder what this flower would look like to a ladybug. Definitely a lot bigger. I wonder how I'd make that red. It's almost a tomato red. Now here's a pretty thing. This plant is called a lupin, and because of the way the leaves are shaped, they tend to accumulate these really beautiful little water droplets after rain. Even on a dry day, they often have a little droplet right in the center. You can see how it does things to the reflections and the things around it. Each little droplet is like a magnifying glass. Here's some cedar. Look at the beautiful pattern of each little frond. They're so delicate. Have you ever tried to draw a cedar branch? To get the details just right, it would really take a long time to really draw carefully. I love cedar. This is the creek behind my house. And just now, sorry, that bird startled me so much. That was a Canada goose. I wanted you to see it, and I think when I startled, the camera went off target. Oops. But we often get a lot of large birds back here. We've had herons, owls, ravens, even a juvenile eagle was perched in a cedar tree not too long ago. Kingfishers. We've had otters. There's little crayfish in the water and tiny little fish. And they've recently built a fish ladder downstream so that the salmon can come up this way and spawn next fall. There's lots and lots of skunk cabbage growing here. Lots and lots. And they're a pretty cool plant to draw, actually. Check it out. They have those beautiful yellow flowers that I like to call swamp lanterns. If you can get up close and personal with a skunk cabbage, it's a great thing to paint or draw. And here you can see my bleeding heart plant. It's one of my favorites. Each little flower is shaped like a heart. There's another stem of them. What would it be like to climb that stem as a little ladybug and get up into the tall branches of this plant? What would that look like? This is my sage plant. It has some new sprouts coming out of this very woody material. If I were small enough, like a hamster, and was walking around in this stuff, it kind of looks like the environment you'd find along the west coast. Gnarly old roots, big aged branches all twisted by the wind. Oh look, a few more water droplets. And there's one on the very tip of that leaf. Look at the neat texture on those leaves. And I mustn't forget to sniff them because, wow, what a great smell sage has. Well, it looks like we're going to get a few strawberries later in the summer. Here's some strawberry blossoms and the leaves. The neat thing about strawberry leaves is they change color in the fall. Actually, they even change color later in the spring and summer. They get these beautiful reds and oranges along with the green. Here's an interesting little weed. I believe that's a wild geranium. And it has some of that red and gold and orange already happening. Mustn't forget about moss. Moss is a world unto itself. This is my moss garden. It's on a piece of lava rock. I've cut myself a little toy there. It's like a salamander or something. I think it's a Pokemon actually. I don't know which one or what it's called. But I love moss because it creates these amazing environments with tiny little details. There's even a tiny little plant growing right here. I don't know if you can see that. It's difficult to get this to focus. There we go. Yeah, moss gardens are awesome. Here's something cool. This is a crystal geode, or a part of one. It's some amethyst or quartz crystals there. You can find all kinds of beautiful stones and geological stuff on Vancouver Island, and I don't know if this one came from around here, but it's just a great example of how you can find interesting rocks. I've got a few other ones here. Let's see. Here's a good one. This was found locally near a mining site. Gives you some interesting ideas for patterns and textures if you look at stones like that. I have my little toy sheep in here. They're just grazing in the pasture. And this is a bit of blown glass that I found. That could become something interesting in my sketchbook. Maybe it's the flower of an alien life form. This is my bonsai plant, and I've got all this weird stuff stuck into the pot. This is the jaw of a salmon. Look at those teeth. Sometimes you can find really interesting animal bones if you go for a walk. Speaking of animal bones, do you know what that is? It was a lizard. It's an Italian wall lizard that died in my watering can, sadly. But I've kept the skeleton, and I put the body onto the moss here so that it would just kind of break down and feed my little bonsai tree and leave behind the bones. Because bonsai trees are like a little miniature world, I wanted it to look like a dragon had curled up here and passed away and left behind its bones. I'm a big fan of dragons in the fantasy world, so I kind of like that there's a little lizard skull there. I've got a few toys representing my dogs. You might want to see my bonsai plant. It's an azalea, and it produces lots of big pink flowers. It looks like a big pink puff when it's flowering in full. Bonsai is definitely the kind of thing that you would do if you like miniature stuff. This is my wife's bonsai. It's a pontilla plant. It makes these yellow flowers with flat yellow petals. And right now it just has these tiny little sprouts on the tips. And then there's this terrific little, oh, there's a goat. Terrific little moss garden down on the bottom. Wonder what it would be like to walk through that forest if you were a ladybug. And check out the texture on this rock. I think this is a lump of coal. It's got some really cool little angles and cracks and stuff. And here we are getting close down to the ground. More dandelions, more grass. What would it be like to walk through this environment as a bug? Maybe a caterpillar trying to find a place to build a cocoon. Or maybe you're one of these little lizards that live in my garden. or a garter snake looking for a sunny spot. Everything looks different when you look at it from a bug's eye view. And you discover that when you think small, the world's a lot bigger than you realized. And there's a lot more in it, and a lot more to look at. Oh, look what I found. It's a slug. Just going about her business, probably eating grass. Just a tiny little slug. And I never would have seen her if I didn't get down here on my hands and knees and look up close. Here's another water droplet. I really like this one. Let's zoom in and see how close we can get. Oh, it doesn't focus. I'm going to zoom out. Oh, there we go. Cameras, I tell you, the technology's a little hard sometimes, but you can use your eyes just fine. Look at that whole universe inside that water droplet. Isn't that incredible? It changes how everything looks, like a little magnifying glass. This is just a honeysuckle vine. And I've just spotted another really crazy cool water droplet. Check that out. Nestled inside. There's going to be a flower on the end of this stalk. Yeah, so little things can be big when you think small. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little miniature tour of my tiny world in my garden. I just want you to think about different perspectives and remember that even when you're stuck at home because there's a pandemic on, there's a lot to look at inside your home, in your garden, in your front lawn. The cracks in the sidewalk even have treasures if you just know how to look. So think small, think like a little ladybug, and use your eyes and open your mind and take your sketchbook outside and try doing some little tiny studies of the things you see. And remember, you don't have to draw exactly what it looks like. You can draw what you feel like on the inside when you're looking at things on the outside. Anything is okay to do. I just want you to go outside and see the world and think like an artist. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.